My name's Eva Estberger Kaya. Eva Estberger when I went to school here. I went to the old school and was here in 11th and 12th grade and graduated 1973. After that I lived here my parents lived here for 6 years, 5 or 6 years, and I went to physiotherapy at Melbourne University 4 years and came back here for holidays every Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to talk about what ISKL means to you?
What it means to me or what it meant to me?
Both?
Both. It was a very different school system. I went to a very strict Lutheran school in Melbourne, and it was sort of the old type school, school uniform with tie, gloves, hat, and very, very strict and very old-fashioned sort of learning, and it was so very free and different to come to the school system here. Not anything I was used to. Yeah.
And what now? What does it mean to you now looking back?
Well, coming back to KL, I haven't been here since I was 21. And on the way back from Australia, after my education there, I grew up in Australia and spent most of my growing up years there. But I stood there with a Swedish passport and parents and a brother who had moved back to Sweden. So after my education there, I was an overseas student and moved back to my homeland that I'd never lived in. So in that manner, I was in quite the same situation as many others who have grown up overseas and really don't know where they're going to settle down as grown-ups. But I moved back to Sweden and started making a life for myself there with all that it entails after having lived abroad all your life. And I guess many others are into the same theme of having a hard time finding roots. Where do I belong? And I spent quite a number of years pursuing an answer to that question until I finally really felt deep in my heart that I'm a part of something very much larger than this. In some ways, I think was also finding that, well, I always knew this answer. I'd felt very much a part of a global sort of identity. I'd grown up meeting people from all different parts of the world. At ISKL, we were from very, very many different backgrounds. I also had a lot of friends outside of ISKL, Malays, Chinese, Indian friends. And I think that background has really given me something that I've taken with me all through my life and that I still use in my professional life as a physiotherapist in the psychiatric care, body therapist. Maybe an ease in meeting people and finding that nothing is strange. We're all just people. Yeah.
How does it feel to come back now? You've been away for so long.
Yeah. It feels very much like home. Coming back to Australia feels very much like home. And it's something that's a little bit difficult to touch on what it really is. It's smells, it's a feeling between people, something in the atmosphere, a way of smiling at each other. But I feel very much at home coming back here.
Yeah.
I live in Stockholm now, by the way. I don't know if I said that.
No, not yet, no.
The last 30 years I've lived in Sweden, 31 years,
Yeah.
32 years.
How did it feel to go back to Sweden after all that time?
That was really, really difficult. That was the worst period in my whole life, and I wish nobody to experience the same thing. Yet at the same time, it's a part of who I am now, so I'm happy for that experience. But it was really, really rough changing cultures. And even if it was two Western cultures, you'd think they'd be quite similar. It just really shook the ground from under my feet. Everything was different, down to the most minute detail in everything. Different way of thinking, a different way of being. It was just very, very different. And I was just wrong. Whatever I did, whatever I said, I was wrong. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then moving back to my home country, being a Swede and not knowing anything about Sweden, Swedish. My Swedish was like a 8-year-old maybe, I don't know. I was working as a physio, didn't know the names of the body parts. I couldn't speak a grown-up Swedish. I didn't know anything about the history, the commonly shared experience of everyone my age. I just missed it all. And it took very many years to catch up with all of that. I had to, in principle, have a Swedish childhood, even though I was growing up. So I spent my years between 20 and 30 catching up with myself and becoming a Swede and learning Swedish and making experiences in the Swedish language. So I think there I also have the same experience as many others. But what do you say? You've interviewed many up to now.
Yeah, it seems that the common theme is it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
It's scary for me because I've only been out of ISKL for 6 years, and I thought that it's supposed to get easier, but
yeah.
I guess.
It does get easier, I promise you.
Do you want to talk at all about going back to the school today and seeing the two different campuses?
Oh, it was great. I wish that my children could go here. Even if a lot has happened, we've all been talking today about what we had at that time, and even if the school building is better and there's a lot more equipment and so on, there was a lot of great things we had with us from that time. We're all talking about how there was a place for everyone. You could be. We're all individuals, and there was a place to expand and develop our different. What's it called? Potentials, interests, and that was great. I think that was also a hard part about returning to Sweden and not being seen. As I wasn't a part of all that they had as a common experience. I was nothing. I was nobody. Nobody was interested, and I had so much that I wanted to share, but there was no space for it. But I think I'd have liked, when I came back to Sweden then, to have understood beforehand how difficult it was going to be, and have had a bit of counselling on how to handle it in the best way. I think that would have given me a lot. The company my parents were sent out with, they'd only just started then interviewing families that had been away for a long time, and they've changed a lot of their policies since then. And I remember being interviewed, 21 years old, by a psychologist who's doing this interview series, and she said, "I feel really, really sorry for you." And I remember Mum saying, "Her? It's me. I'm having the toughest time here." But I think we all had a tough time adjusting